Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is that you're tuning in, thank you for stopping by. This is the Martal Group Fireside Chats, where each week we sit down with an industry expert and get their unique perspective on the world through the lens that we all know as sales and marketing. On today's episode, we sit down with Cory Chadwick, the CEO and founder of the Mental Gym. Now, Cory is somebody who absolutely preaches mental health and mental wellness, and I think you're really gonna like this conversation. Have a listen.
Look, every one of us has a choice to make about who we want to be and how we want to show up and the kind of lives we want to live, whether you're in sales or marketing or anything. What I would love for people to do is really consider this choice. Consider that burnout does not need to be a normal thing. We can wipe that out. We can be happier. We can feel more fulfilled. We can be higher performers, more productive, more engaged. We can be more connected teams. All of these things are possible. We see it every single day.
Now, that was just a small taste of the conversation between Cory and I. It was an exciting conversation, and we actually kicked some things off with Cory sharing a very personal story. Now, if you're interested in mental wellness, mental health, and how you can go from good to great, stick around. Without further ado, let's hop right into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Martal Group Fireside Chats. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, stopping by wherever you happen to be watching. We really appreciate it. Today we're joined by a special guest. Now, typically you guys know we will go through these podcasts and sit down with somebody who is an expert in the sales field, in the marketing field. That's what this podcast is all about, right? Today I wanted to take a little bit of a different turn and sit down with somebody who can walk us through the mental challenges, the physical challenges of day-to-day life. And I think that there's a lot that you guys are going to learn with our guest here today and how that ties into your professional career, your personal lives, and everything in between. So I'd like to welcome to the podcast today, Mr. Cory Chadwick, the founder and CEO of the Mental Gym. First off, Cory, welcome. Great to have you here.
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate your time today. And I'm excited to kind of really get into this conversation because I know that this is something that, I've had a lot of interest in, just as, kind of like a personal creator, somebody who's been involved in sales for the better part of 10 years and everything like that. So I'm excited to kind of dig into this conversation. Before we start getting into questions and before we start like peeling apart this onion layer that, of everything that you've created with the Mental Gym, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a little background on who you are, kind of set the stage for us just a little bit.
Yeah, sure. Like I said, my name's Cory Chadwick. I'm a mental fitness and performance trainer and founder and CEO of the Mental Gym. I'm a dad. I got two beautiful little boys. Real important part of my life, being a present dad and the best husband I can be too. Mm-hmm. This all started for me, long time ago. When I was growing up, there was kind of two things that were really influential. One of them was, that feeling like you have potential and you don't know what to do with it, mm-hmm. and you don't know what direction to point yourself in, right? And you're like, school's not really helping me figure that part out, right? It's like you want more out of life, and we don't really learn how to get more out of life. And so that was a big theme for me. I want to be my best and make a contribution and show up at my best for other people. And the other thing that was mental health came on my radar pretty early. My mom suffered from mental illness when I was growing up. It became apparent when I was a teenager, and things got pretty bad with that. Yeah. Got worse and worse, and unfortunately, Mom ended up after a couple of attempts. Mom took her own life. It was brutal. It was as heartbreaking and devastating as it was. It was also scary. Mm-hmm. Is this genetic? Is this coming for me too? And at the time also my dad started his battle with addiction. So mental health was like right there in front of me. And I was afraid to turn out like them. At the time I was a psych major, and I've always liked knowing how things work and how to make them better. And I realized that I had really three options, and it's the same three options we all have. Number one, you can kind of cross your fingers and hope everything works out and you're just somehow okay. Mm-hmm. Don't really feel like that's an option. Number two, you can wait until something happens or something goes wrong or goes bad and deal with it reactively, just be reactive about it, and then hoping it's not too late or you can kind of get back to something. I mean, we see that a lot nowadays, people waiting until they're burnt out, and then they're burnt out, and then you're in trouble once you're burnt out. Right? So the third one was to be proactive, to get mentally fit. And that just made a lot more sense to me. And so one little step at a time, one little adjustment, one little improvement at a time, I started really just upgrading and rewiring how I thought and made decisions and behaved. And all those little adjustments just create a tremendous compounding effect. I mean, this was a long time ago, and it's still how we do it in the mental gym, just small, consistent improvements that add up and add up and add up.
Yeah.
So, I was kind of doing this for myself, in part as prevention, but also because there was a certain kind of life I wanted to live and a version of myself I wanted to be. And over time, all these changes were compounding. And I made it officially my work about 8 years ago, sharing this with other people and seeing the transformations in their lives. About 4 years ago, I was always looking for kind of the better way to be sharing it with people. And I was right in the middle of a CrossFit class. I love that group exercise model where we show up for each other and support each other, and you're just kind of in it together, and we want to be our best together. And I just thought, well, we're doing this for our bodies. Why aren't we doing this for our minds? And that's what got the mental gym started.
Well, first off, Cory, thank you so much for sharing that story. I'm sure that that's not something that's easy for you, no matter how much time has passed. But, I think it really sets the stage, just like you said, on how you're working to change, your own approach mentally, right? How you're working to kind of set yourself up. And you mentioned this stuck out to me in your LinkedIn, kind of like the pre-bio, where you're working to move people from good to great. And that goes hand in hand with one of the things that you said at the very beginning, where it was like that feeling where you're like, I know there's something I need to be doing. I know that I can do so much more, but you're just not sure where to start, really. And it seems like all of that is kind of, the cogs in the wheel that help this whole thing to move for you.
Oh, absolutely. It's a big pattern that we've seen over years now, is that people genuinely want to live their best lives at work and at home, and they don't know how. Like you said, they don't know where to start. They don't know how to get from here to there. And so what happens is people kind of, on a scale from 1 to 10, people just kind of settle in around a 5, 6, some higher performers, maybe around a 7 type of thing. But is that what you want? Right. And we're all about living your 10, and 10 doesn't mean perfect. And it doesn't mean every day's, a perfect day. It's not that at all. It's just, it is showing up at your best. It is living your best life. And that's what people want. So I know a lot of the time when people talk about mental health or think about mental health, they think of mental illness, right? That's the first thing that kind of comes to mind. Someone who's really battling, struggling, acute mental health challenges. And let's go back to that scale from 1 to 10, but let's look at it on like a well-being scale from 1 to 10. And so we think about mental health, but we really think about a 2 out of 10. And then it's, okay, well, how do we get people from a 2 to a 3 or a 4 so they can just get back to being functional? And so there are things like therapy and reactive care, and it's incredibly important that does exist. I mean, this should have been a conversation happening 50 years ago. It's well overdue, maybe more than 50, but that conversation just isn't relevant to where most people are at. Most people aren't at a 2. Most people are, again, right in the middle, around a 5 or 6, where they're feeling stress and maybe a little overwhelm. They're not fully burnt out yet, but they're burning. And this is a whole lot of people. They want to show up at their best. They want to be great parents and partners and teammates and leaders, and they want to make everyone around them better. And they do want to live their best lives, and they can't because they're burning. And what happens is we kind of say, oh, we're fine, because we're not at a 2 and we're functional and we're making it work. And when you compare yourself to a lot of other people, you're like, yeah, I am fine and my life's good. But again, is that where we want to be? So you're already doing good. Awesome. Let's take you from good to great. Let's help you really show up at your best.
Yeah. How does, if you don't mind me asking, there's probably a million different ways that you can take first steps into making those, like acute changes, right? Making the small steps into kind of improving your overall mental health, or, going from good to great, everything that you've said. But where does self-realization come in on this? Obviously, self-realization is probably a big part of having that feeling and everything like that. But how, if you were talking to me, like what's the best way to make me aware of my situation, or the best way to put somebody in a position to say, oh, I am at a 5 and I can be doing better? this is like an aha moment for me. Does that, if that kind of makes sense?
Absolutely makes sense. Yeah. And again, like a lot of people that we'll work with are, 5, 6, 7, even 8, right? They're like,
Yeah.
they're doing really well, but they recognize that it's not 10. They're not, there's more. They want more out of life. For me, that was the biggest realization for me. I was actually, I was in a different business. I owned a company. Things were going well. Business was good, and I was checking the boxes in life that we've learned to try to check. Um, and I woke up one day and it just kind of hit me that I want more out of life. And I didn't know what more was at the time. It took me a little while to figure that out. And it's a big part of what we work on in the mental gym with people too, but it was recognizing that life is good and I've got a lot to be grateful for, and I'm certainly not complaining, but I want more out of life. And I've got more to be and maybe more to do, whatever it was, but it just felt like something was missing. And I think that's a big realization for a lot of people. Especially like through COVID, right? The 3 years of great, right? It was like the great reflection. People really paying attention to their happiness and their fulfillment in life and wanting more out of life and recognizing that we don't know how. And also, obviously, our mental well-being became front and center during COVID too. And that's a great thing for everybody that it is so present, because again, it's not about like getting by. It's not about surviving. I think a lot of people think now, okay, well, as long as I'm getting by, I'm fine. It's like, no, we're thinking about that wrong. Like, let's be our best. Let's move from good to great.
You've got kind of like this self-realization, where then does the first step come in? Is it something that every person has to take account to like their own situation and then make, pre-plan their own first step? Or is there more of like a universal, kind of like, hey, I want you to try this out? How does that work?
Yeah, the first step, and it is the most important step, is just recognizing that you want more, right? That there's another level that you have to get to, and you want to get there. This is for individuals, for teams, for organizations. It's the same thing, because really, like, you got kind of two groups of people who are maybe that 5, 6, 7 range. People who are absolutely fine being there, and people who aren't, and they want to move up that scale. And so that's the first step, is recognizing which one of those groups you fall into. The next step is not going to be the same for everybody.
Okay.
I think about this very much like physical exercise, where we've got gyms, different types of gyms, different ways of exercise. And the important thing is that you find the right thing for you. Like I mentioned CrossFit. CrossFit's not for everybody. Running's not for everybody. Yoga's not for everybody. But for the people that it's for, it's the greatest thing in the world, right? That they're like, this is my thing. I found my thing. And so when it comes to working on your well-being, there's a lot of ways you can do it. I think a lot of the ways that we do work on our well-being, though, are kind of like status quo or baseline things. And what I mean by that is, like, I'll use meditation, for example. I swear by meditation. I meditate every single morning, 30 to 40 minutes. Like, it's just so important to me, and it's such an important part of me showing up at my best. But I also think of it kind of like keeping my baseline, right? It's not necessarily making me better and better. What it is creating a baseline where I can show up better and better. Meditation in and of itself isn't going to help me live my best life and live my 10, but it's an important building block.
Yeah.
People like to journal. I love going for walks in nature. That's a fantastic thing, not just for your well-being, but for creativity, for performance. Like, this is where I work out a lot of my big ideas, is just those quiet walks where you're just alone with your mind and I don't know, walking in the woods.
Yeah.
So I think it's different. There's a lot of practices that people can do. People like to read, on and on, but I do believe that all of those are great kind of baseline starting points for people who want to get mentally fit, for people who want to show up at their best. Then you're getting into working with people to do that. You can do it in a group, you can do it individually. Therapy is an option for some people, absolutely. Executive coaching, life coaching, like, there's lots of ways that people can work on being better versions of themselves. This is the way that we do it, together in a group with like-minded people who want the same thing. We want to show up at our best. trainer-led group classes. The energy's great. The topics are relatable. It's just this awesome, honest, safe space with no judgment. And people crave that because, something that is, I think, becomes so important and so obviously needed is real human connection. And that's a huge thing. We combine proactive well-being with personal and leadership development and real human connection. And it's really those three coming together, and we sprinkle some performance in there too.
Yeah.
But it's those coming together that make it all sing.
Yeah. And that's something I think I personally realized too, being in a creative field as well, right? There's a lot of people that I know from like an online world. And I would imagine it's kind of the same here with the COVID years, right? Think about how many years we all were working from home, or we all were, like joining calls like this, right? Where it's virtually, I'm here, you're there type thing. And one of the things that I realized after a couple different years is that the face-to-face interactions and having like-minded people around you that are all working on the same thing. And this is just, whether it has to do with mental wellness, or it has to do with, performance or work, or, CrossFit, right? Just like you mentioned, all of those are incredibly important with that human connection, because it helps just boost just like your overall like attitude and your, I guess, wellness for lack of a better phrase, right?
Definitely. And just to be clear, we actually do everything online. We run our groups over Zoom, and you do get to work with people all over the world at the same time. And it's a fantastic thing. And no travel time. I'm actually a big fan of that. That 1 hour in and out. But that connection piece is so important, because it's so easy to go through life kind of feeling like you're all alone, like you're the only one dealing with something that you're dealing with, or trying to figure it out, or how do I get from here to there and be my best? And you kind of think nobody else will understand. Nobody really gets you. Because the truth is, we tend not to talk about real stuff. We talk a lot about surface level stuff, right? And people crave real. Like, we've seen this over and over and over again. People genuinely crave real. They crave this environment where they can just be honest and real with each other, and not have to filter what they say, and not be judged for it, not be judged for not having all the answers and not having it all figured out. We're people, right? And we're going through life trying to figure it out the best way we can, and working with what we've got. But when people see that we're just so much more alike than we are different, we just have so much in common, it's so relieving. It accelerates growth in a tremendous way. It really, really does. And you get to learn from each other as well, which is such a powerful thing. You're learning from your trainer, absolutely, but you're learning from each other. And it's that connection piece that just, I can give you all the best personal development stuff there is. I can give you all the best mental fitness stuff there is. And that's hugely important to what we do. But it's that real human connection, that environment we create, it's the glue that brings it all together.
Out of curiosity, with the people that you work with, and everyone that maybe goes through like classes or sessions or however it's set up for you guys, do you find more people are coming to you on the personal side? Are they coming to you because they want more out of their jobs? Is there like a distinction, or is it more of a general like, I know I want more and I need help to take those first steps? Okay.
It's a great question. So a lot of the work that we do is with organizations and their people, teams within the organization, or just, a company will say, hey, we're offering the mental gym. Who wants in? Which is great. But to your question specifically, it's naturally ambitious people a lot of the time, where maybe it's professionally, maybe it's personally, maybe it's both, but they just have they have another level to get to. These people aren't going to be satisfied saying, hey, I'm 25, 35, 45, 55 years old, whatever it is, but like, I'm done. I've reached my peak and I'm going to stay here. It's no, they want to be, maybe they want to be happier. Maybe they want to be a higher performer. Maybe they want to be a great leader, a more effective leader, a great teammate. They want to be better parents. They want to be better partners. Like, you name it. They want to be a better version of themselves. And where people will have maybe their own specific motivations for it, we all have that same general motivation for it, that common thing. Let's show up at our best.
We talked a little bit before this, before, we kind of got the recording off the ground and everything like that, that there is kind of a connection between those two as well, right? There's a connection between, those who are in it for personal, or rather the people that are ambitious will start to see connections on how improving their mental wellness is affecting not only their personal, but also their professional careers. What's kind of the data behind that, or is there any data behind that shows like, how fast something like that takes off the ground, or where those connections truly lie?
Well, I think we've learned to think about these things like they're separate things, like work and personal are separate things. And what if they weren't separate? What if they're actually the same thing? What if who you are and how you show up is who you are and how you show up? I mean, a lot of the people that will be in the mental gym are people who really care about both. Like, they want to be great on both sides, personal and professional. They're not entirely driven by professional. Like, I just want to make all the money in the world, but I don't actually care about being happy. I just don't think you'd be in the mental gym if you were that kind of person.
Right.
But hey, you want to be really successful in your career and not burn out and be happy and feel fulfilled. Like, there you go. Now the mental gym's for you. How long it takes each person to really see improvement is a really personal thing. There's no standard. I mean, I could share with you a lot of typical results and the times that we generally see them. Like, for example, in the first 12 weeks of the mental gym, we call it level 1, that first 12-week program, we see an average reduction in burnout of about 44%.
Wow.
So in 12 weeks, there's a 44% reduction in feeling like you're burning out, which is huge.
That is huge.
Yeah, we see dramatic improvements in happiness and fulfillment and quality of life, productivity and engagement, because it's all related.
Yeah,
these things are all kind of happening at the same time. And so for some people, depending on how far along they are ready to start with, maybe they just need a few like little tweaks in how they think, make decisions, and behave, and like it sets them off on a completely different trajectory. And for some people, there's a little more like seed planting, if you will, and just kind of planting these ideas, and it's like we're watering them, these concepts, and letting them grow and grow and grow. So some people will report, I'm thinking about one guy, he was awesome, and he was in the gym for about 4 weeks, and he reported that he just got a promotion and a raise that was a 50% raise. And he was a pretty young guy. He was still in his 20s, I believe, mid-late 20s. And he was saying, I never thought I'd make this much money in my life.
Wow. And
now I made it already. And it's really because we're learning to think differently and make decisions differently and behave differently on a fundamental level, not on a surface level, on a fundamental level. And when that happens, it's like you almost get things, you get how they work differently. And so you show up differently. So it's no surprise when people in the mental gym are the ones getting the promotions in your company, are being your highest performers. They're also being the ones that people look to and say like, hey, what have you figured out that we haven't figured out?
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Cory, do you think that this is, because you made a kind of a specific comment earlier, and I'm curious, is what you do in improving mental wellness, is this something that everyone should go through? Or are there people that this maybe necessarily isn't meant for?
Yes and yes.
Okay.
So, I believe everybody should be in the mental gym. Okay. I absolutely believe that. The world would be a much better place if that was the case. That being said, we're for everybody, but we're not for everybody.
Okay.
And there are certain types of people who really respond to the mental gym, who it's really for. And there's other people who it's not. And again, I'll go back to that physical exercise example. You could think of it like restaurants, right? It's if you're a vegan, you're not going to go to a steakhouse. If you're a steak eater, you're not going to go to a vegan restaurant. And so you can still love food, but it's got to be the right fit for you. So again, there are certain type of people who are highly functional, naturally ambitious people. A lot of leaders, emerging leaders or hidden leaders, high performers, hidden gems. All those are high potential people, like, people like this, people who sometimes are easy to identify and sometimes they're not at all.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see people in the gym and we're just we're always curious, like, who are those next hidden gems? Who are those people in your company who you didn't even see this coming and they become your absolute rock stars? And there are people who, sometimes people just aren't ready for it yet, where
Okay.
they think they are, but they're quite not. And it's like, that's okay. Maybe you will be in 3 months or 6 months or something like that. And
Hmm.
but the people who are ready, it's kind of like, where have you been all my life? It's that feeling.
Yeah.
Like you're gonna help me show up the way I want to show up and do it in such a, I don't know, a normal human way
Hmm.
where it's just an enjoyable thing. People love the workouts and they love how they change their lives.
You spend a lot of time doing this for others, right? You've created
Sure.
this whole, let's call it almost a movement in a sense, right? Because
Sure.
that's kind of the vibes that I'm getting here is that this is something that, you've said it a couple times, right? It should have been around and talked about a little more widely, maybe, 30, 40, 50 years ago, but
Yeah.
we're here now. And the best that we can do is improve things now. You're working with a lot of other people, but I'm curious, how do you keep your axe sharpened, so to speak?
Yeah.
How do you set yourself up and make sure that, obviously you've got your own regiment. You mentioned meditating and walking in nature, but, do you have any specific things that you go through to make sure you're staying up to date for everyone that, that comes through the gym?
Yeah, great question. Yeah, and a lot of exercise to that exercise, in the morning too. It's all part of my routine, and physical exercise is so important for your well-being. But
Hmm.
what really this is I do the work too. So,
Gotcha.
like as I'm, let's say, designing workout programs or designing individual workouts, I'm doing the work.
Hmm.
We have everybody in the mental gym does what we call self work. It's like a little bit of homework that you would do between workouts to keep your
Okay.
momentum building and integrating what we work on in the gym, just integrating it into your real life. So it's not just theory. Now you're putting it into practice. It's great stuff. And it's not like overly time consuming or anything like that. It's just making sure your momentum builds. But like I do that too. These are all things that I'm doing. So I am very much walking the walk of everything that we're doing in the gym. And in fact, won't teach anything that I'm not living myself.
Yeah.
I think that's a really important thing. I don't want to go on a sidebar of people who preach things that they don't practice, but I do believe it's important to be practicing everything that you're teaching other people. Yeah, and I love to read and I love to learn and love to explore new ideas, both other people's ideas and my own in the creation of this. I've
Hmm.
got a wonderful coach, and I've almost always had coaches and mentors in my life, and I still do. And I think that's tremendously important to have people who see you and hold you to a standard that you need to be held to and keep you accountable to that. But also see you in a way that you can't see yourself, because that expression, right? It's hard to like read the bottle from the inside or read the label from the inside of the
Right.
bottle. I
Yeah.
botched that one, but yeah, no matter how self-aware you are, how much you're working on yourself, having that other person reflect back to you or other people reflect back to you is tremendously important. So yeah, this is all a part of my life, day to day, week to week, month to month.
Hmm.
Um, it's important, which doesn't mean, by the way, that everybody needs to start there.
Okay.
I think one of the biggest challenges that people have in trying to make improvements in themselves is they bite off too much too fast.
Hmm.
Think about anybody on January 1st who joins a gym and they're like, okay, I'm going to change my life. I'm going to
Ready to
start
go,
exercising.
right?
I'm ready to go, right? And I'm going to change these habits, and I'm going to, I don't know, quit smoking or change my diet. And I'm going to exercise 5 times a week. And it's like, hey, I love your ambition here, but
Yep.
we know what happens, right? We know that 3 weeks into January, all that falls off. So
Hmm.
I would so much rather you start small. And again, small, consistent, incremental improvements. Just pick something and start. And don't think about this like you need to change your life in a week. Think about it as I'm setting myself up to live my best life, my whole life. So let's build stuff that sticks and improves. Obviously, a lot of what we do in the mental gym adds to that stickiness. So
Yeah.
things do stick, and you do show up the way you want to show up. But yeah, I think it's so important to be doing something and be pointing yourself in the right direction. And as you move in that direction, you find more and more stuff that clicks with you and that aligns with you.
Hmm.
And you just keep thinking and making decisions and behaving in a way that's consistent with that direction. And so, yeah, you find these pieces that are right for you and help you be your best.
And I like what you said there too about like the consistency in just starting, right? And I think that applies not only to the purpose of this podcast, right? In being involved with sales and marketing, but it can apply to almost any field, right? It
Mm.
doesn't matter if you're if you're in sales and marketing, if you're leading a company, if you're flipping burgers for all I care, right? There's probably a lot of these consistent things that, it sounds like from what you're saying, you got to start somewhere and just start adding these things to your routine, or start doing and going through, these motions that will kind of snowball effect, it sounds like, right?
Yeah. We're big on the snowball effect.
Yeah.
Real big.
Yeah. And I think that that's huge. And that's something that, a lot of people have told me in the past. I'm sure that a lot of listeners out there have even heard, is just, you gotta start somewhere. And I'm sure that there's a lot of, like objections that come up, or, like roadblocks. And that, I think that's where it goes back to the realization that we talked about a little bit earlier, like just realizing that you want more, you want to do something, but you've got to pick a place. You got to pick a point A, find your North Star, and just go, and then start learning and making those changes along the way.
Exactly. And again, you're not going to do it in a day. You're not going to do it in a week, right? It's just start. And that's just so important. Just start. And you mentioned something I think is really important for everybody to pay attention to, is there will always be reasons not to. You can always find reasons not to do the thing you want to do, and not, this is why people don't exercise and don't meditate and don't eat the way they want. And this is why people are burning out all the time and all over the place. This is why people are massively disengaged and quiet quitting. And I could go on and on here. We got to start somewhere, and we have to know that for all the reasons we have not to do it, the reason that we have to do it just needs to be a little bit more. And as long as it is, you'll always find a way to start and make progress and keep going. Even in the mental gym, like we commonly have people who show up for a workout and they're like, oh man, I had a really tough day today, or a tough week. And the truth is, I almost didn't come to the workout today, but I'm so glad that I did. Yeah. And you show up and you put in your workout, and you feel great. And now you're set up for the rest of the week. And it's that, we always say, like, the win sometimes is just showing up. Yeah. Right. People talk about exercise, like physical exercise, a lot. I don't have time to exercise. I'm like, do you have time to do 5 push-ups? Because if you do 5 push-ups a day, that's going to add up to a lot in a year that, you wouldn't have done otherwise. Bingo. And so just show up, just do something. And as you get into that momentum of showing up and doing something, you realize you show up a lot more and a lot better, and you're doing more and more, because that's just the way it happens. But you got to show up.
Kind of a level from your side, you're going through these, I don't want to say motions and mean that in a negative way. Like you're practicing a lot of what you preach, right? You're going through and doing a lot of what you're teaching and everything like that. Do you still find yourself getting burnt out from time to time? Do you still find yourself kind of like going through peaks and valleys, or is this process helped you to find a solid constant that you can then, move around?
Both. So your baseline raises up quite a bit, which means we're still human. We're still going to have ups and downs in life, and highs and lows, and you're going to have days where you're not feeling it, or you're bummed out, or it's just, whatever it is. Days, maybe a few days, maybe a week. It happens, right? Like you lose your job, someone gets sick, it's like, I don't know, life happens, right? We're not immune to life just because we're living our tens. What we are, though, is so much better equipped to deal with life, to manage life, and to thrive anyway. So you're operating from a much higher baseline, which means your highs are higher, your lows are also higher, and you also snap back a lot faster from your lows to get back to your baseline. Think of it like an elastic, right? You stretch that elastic, it snaps back. Yeah. So that's a lot of what this is. Do I find myself getting burnt out? No, because I don't let it happen. Again, like, this is such an important thing here. A lot of that is boundaries. So for example, I work my work day. I put in my, I do my morning routine, my meditation, my exercise. I work. I love my work. I really probably could do it all day long, every single day, and not take a break. And I absolutely love it. But I care a lot about my family, being a dad, being a husband. And when it's time to go pick up my boys, and when it's time to have dinner with my family, and when it's time to just hang out and talk with my wife, like, that stuff's so important to me too. And so I know how easy it is. I know how easy it is to burn out because I see people doing it all the time. And I get it. We have a lot on our plate. We're being asked to do more with less a lot. And the world's not getting any easier. And I
Yeah.
just say instead of doing more with less, let's do more with more. And when we have more to do it with, and we recognize that we could push ourselves really hard and get something done and burn out, but we at least we got that thing done. But crap, now we're burnt out.
Right.
I think that doesn't work. That's not a solution. I think where most people are at, in fact, I know where most people are at, is they're operating at kind of that burning level. And so they're not showing up at their best. They're not thinking the way they can or feeling the way they want to feel. Their work isn't as good as it can be. They're not showing up personally or professionally. They want to be showing up, but at least they're getting things done, this long list of tasks. And I'd love people to rethink this, is that, are you better off showing up at a 6 and doing that for 20 hours a day? Or are you better off showing up at a 10 and doing that for less hours a day? Because I can tell you the answer there. You're better off showing up at a 10, even if you're not working, let's say, all those hours, but the work you're doing is so much better.
Yeah.
And you're getting more out of life, again, with your family, with your team, with whoever's important to you. So that's so important, and that's a big part of my life too. So do I ever feel like I'm burning? Yeah, sure, sometimes. But I catch myself real early, real fast.
Yeah.
And say, okay, we know what this means. Pay attention to that. Don't let it
Yeah.
go any further than this.
Yeah, I love that. Well, I know we're kind of coming up on time here, and I love this conversation. Like I said, I think there's a lot of applicable things that apply to everyone, right?
Sure.
There's so much that hopefully everyone can take from this. I know certainly I am, right? Being able to take from this conversation to understand yourself as a person, how you work, how what roadblocks you come up with, just like you said, how fast or how quick, how you burn out, what causes burnout, and how you kind of snap back to that, to the elastic kind of analogy there. Just kind of in the interest of time and everything like that, I wanted to give you kind of the last maybe few minutes or so. If there's anything out there that maybe we didn't cover that you wanted to kind of put out there into the world, or any kind of like final statements that you wanted to make about all of this, give you the floor a little bit and let you kind of close us out here, Cory.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you. Look, every one of us has a choice to make about who we want to be and how we want to show up and the kind of lives we want to live. And you mentioned it, whether you're in sales or marketing or anything, we are people. And we care about a lot of the same things. And we want to show up at our best. And we want to live our best lives at work and at home. For leaders, this is a choice not just for you, but for your people. All of these people who look up to you, all these people you're responsible for. You can help them live their best lives or not. But any of this is a choice. It's a choice for you. It's a choice for your team. It's a choice for your company, your organization. It's a choice. What I would love for people to do is really consider this choice. Consider that burnout does not need to be a normal thing. We can wipe that out. We can be happier. We can feel more fulfilled. We can be higher performers, more productive, more engaged. We can be more connected teams. All of these things are possible. We see it every single day. And it's just a choice. And so you asked the question earlier, where do you start? Demo a workout. Just try one. Try one for your team, try one for your organization, try one for your people, try one for yourself. And just see what a mental gym workout's like, see how it feels, see how much you enjoy it and how much you get out of it, even just from a single workout. And if the mental gym's for you, then awesome. Let's talk about you and let's talk about your people.
That kind of leads me into my final question here, Cory. If somebody wanted to go to the mental gym, or somebody wanted to learn more about this, where are they going? Is it, do you want them to start at your website, on LinkedIn? How are people finding you to kind of get that demo started?
Yeah, website's a good place. mentalgymlife.com. Okay. That's our website. Yeah, if you're on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. Say hi. Feel free to check out my posts and follow along. Love to hear from you, but I love meeting people. I love meeting people who care. I love meeting people who care about them, how they show up, and who care about their people. I get to meet so many awesome leaders who are just the kind of people that you want to work for and want to work with. And it gives you a lot lot of optimism for where things can go and where we're taking them. So yeah, check out the website, connect with me on LinkedIn. Those are two awesome places to connect.
Well, I'll make sure, just for all the listeners out there, I'll make sure that I drop that down in, like the YouTube description and the Spotify description, all of that jazz. That way, if you're interested in connecting with Cory a little bit further, or you're interested in what the Mental Gym has to offer, I know I'm definitely going to be checking it out after, after we hop off here and everything like that. But I think that's a great place to end, Cory. I really, really appreciate your time today and getting to share a lot of this stuff with us. I know I learned a lot. And I'm sure that the listeners did as well, just on the importance of your mental wellness and what that means and how it translates to your personal life, your professional life, and everything in between. So, Cory, maybe we'll have to do a little bit of a reunion tour in a couple different months here and get a chance once we've heard from some other guests. And, I'd love to, stay connected and hear what you're keeping up with and how things are going, because I think that this is kind of it's all about being a student is how I see a lot of this. You're always learning, you're always, changing and adapting and, figuring out who you are. So there's a lot of that involved in this, and, would love to reconnect in a couple of months and kind of see how things are going for you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Again, thanks for having me on. This is, I really enjoyed it.
Shout out once again to Cory for spending some time with us for this fireside chat. This was a fascinating conversation, learning about how important mental wellness is to prevent burnout. It's a topic that I believe everyone should take seriously, and I hope you got a small taste of that from Cory as well. If you have a favorite part that you enjoyed, feel free to leave a comment down below and let us know your thoughts on this chat with Cory. Be sure to like the video, consider hitting the subscribe button, and turn on those notifications so you can be alerted when future chats go live on our channel. Thanks for listening, and as always, happy hunting.